I got to trim a couple seconds off the end of that.
There you
It just goes dead.
go.
Anyway,
But I'm telling you, that theme slaps.
dude, you did such a good job. No lie, you did such a good job. For those who don't know, that was one of Chris's musical creations, and he did a fantastic job with it. I love it.
I think it
And,
gives the right vibe.
right? I think so. So, how you doing, sir? How was your week?
Pretty good, pretty good. Didn't get too much accomplished painting wise as I wanted, but that's okay. I'm still ahead of schedule on my current project.
Okay, good.
So
And you had a convention, didn't you, or a gaming
yeah,
event last weekend? I think.
last weekend I was at Tacticon, the first gaming convention, first iteration of that gaming convention. Talked to the convention runner, and he is all set to get it going again next year. Same bat place, same bat time.
Nice,
So if you're going to
nice.
be
And
in
you
the
ran a
Kansas
few
City,
games, right?
yeah, I did run two games. I ran my Ocean Thunder, and it was a what if day scenario. Um, if the Americans and the Japanese met during the day during the Battle of Guadalcanal. So instead of the two night actions, it was a single day action with various ships that were available at the time of those two battles. I had all the ships printed up, all 24 Japanese ships that participated in both battles,
Oh,
all 19 ships of the 19 of the American ships that were part of both battles, um, printed, painted, the ship charts created, and at the end of the game, I had four. I say 4.5 players, um, because I had two guys that are new to wargaming show
okay,
up,
cool.
and they actually saw the game in the catalog and said, "Ooh, we want to play that," and actually signed up before the convention even started. And in fact, I might, except for the tournament games that were there, I might have been the only one that had pre-registered players
Nice.
of the games that were there. So that I had that going, and then my best friend Chris Copeland played the game. Um, our buddy Reese played for a little while until Jay Wiley's game started, which was fine. I mean,
Yeah.
he was kind of a fill-in, but did get a couple other folks to play. So it was a good time. At the end of it all, I gave away all of the ships and all of the SICs as a prize
Nice. Well done.
to the two new guys that uh, I think they're probably late 20s, early 30s.
Very cool.
So they just like within the last 3 or 4 years have gotten into the hobby, and so yeah, they'd never played a naval game before. So not only did they get all the ships and all the ship charts for the game, I gave them a copy of the working copy of what I've got there now.
Very cool.
So they're going to sit down, read through it, and play it. And um, I need to reach out to them and see what have them give me some feedback on it. Which is
Hmm.
they're the perfect candidate for this
Right.
because they're new to gaming. And
Let me interrupt you real quick,
yeah, go
boss.
ahead.
For those watching that may not know what Ocean Thunder is, why don't you take a second to let them know about the history of the game and the fact that this
Sure.
is one of your actual designs, and
Yeah.
the fact
Yeah.
that we're going to make a push to get that published in 2025.
Right.
So
So
go ahead and talk about that.
Ocean Thunder is my World War II naval combat game that I've been working on since 1991. Um, my best friend Chris Copeland and I, he's my best friend from high school, and we sat down at my in my
Does that make
house.
me your best friend from San Diego?
Yes, yes, you are. Well, you and
Oh,
Charles. I mean,
you and Charles. That's right. Dang it. Dang Charles. I forgot about the man. Okay.
yeah.
You're two.
the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
Anyway,
just the legend. Or is that the myth? I can't tell. Anyway, but he is he's been pretty integral in the design of kind of the movement mechanics and figuring out distance. And that's an entirely different story, but which is pretty apropos for this show. But we've been working on it since 1991. I've got it to the point where it is playable and gives a somewhat viable results. To give you an idea, I actually do have. Pardon me.
I caught him off guard with this question, guys. So give him a second to grab his stuff.
So this is what my ship sheets look like right now.
Very professional looking, dude.
Yeah. This is what
yeah,
they look.
So nonchalant.
Well, no. I appreciate that.
I know.
What they have come from was something like this, and actually, yeah, this was like version 2.
Okay.
As of 1996, this is what they looked like in 1996, and I was able to get them to this, and believe it or not, this part right here is the same size as this right here. The only difference is I've made it 4 wide instead of 5 wide.
Okay.
Because that way I'm using a D6 with it being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on
Got
the
it.
wall.
That's what I was going to say, Eric. So real quick, I'm going to interrupt you just to acknowledge some people that are in chat.
Sure.
Original Grognard, awesome. He had some good news that came out earlier this week about product on a ship. I'll leave it at that, but it's all good stuff. Telemachus, holy hand grenade. I think that was in the middle of me trying to be your best friend and being shot down. So that happens. And then Eric, am I your best friend in Ma?
In Massachusetts? Sure, why not, Eric?
Oh, that's not convincing. Yes, Eric, you're my best friend on the whole East Coast. As long as it's
I can't say that.
Well, let me finish. As long as it's within the East Coast of Ma.
There you go.
And he says, you know what? That's funny that you say that, Eric. I was just going to suggest that maybe Chris try to do a preview version of Ocean Thunder where it's one ship fighting a bot that might fit on a 8.5 by 11. Something to think about. Challenge.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Birthday Boy and your best friend in San Diego, Charles Latoya, is in the house. Hi, Charles. No, his Charles. We just had that conversation, and you were thrown as BF of SD.
Well, and the reason is Charles was one of my very, very first subscribers, and he has been on just about every single one of my live shows. He comments on just about every single one of my videos.
Right.
He won the first giveaway that I did. So he's right
well
up there.
earned.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just a Johnny come lately.
You're a couple of notches down because of the whole beans and chili business.
Yeah, and the fajita stance didn't help me either, did it?
Nope.
Anyway. Oh, we're Eric's first two friends. I doubt that very seriously, sir. I doubt that very seriously.
No.
Anyway, we're rambling a little bit, but sorry to interrupt you there.
No,
Chris,
that's
you want to
okay.
go ahead and finish,
Yeah.
and I'll be quiet?
So I was actually, before I found the Department of the Navy, um, I got a CD with the recognition manual that the Department of Defense and the Department of the Navy put out for ship recognition in 1943. So it's got
Okay,
all of
question.
the
They put it out in 1943, or it was for
yes,
ships of. Okay, so it's period. Nice.
yeah, um, and so that's where I'm getting, you know, these and the overhead shots from.
Okay.
Um, Eventually, I'm gonna want to replace them because they, the American ships, are drawn in a different style than all the other ships, so they
Okay.
look different. So eventually, I'm gonna want to figure out a way to, you know, get them all to look all the same. Maybe one day when I've got, you know, just shit tons of money, I can go to an artist and say, okay, hey, I need you to draw all this bullshit. Or I get a hold of Mal Wright and say, hey, Mal, can I use your stuff? You know,
Mm-hmm.
if I either pay you some money or what, can I use your stuff? Because
Right.
his artwork is amazing. It looks really good. Anyway, so before I found that, I figured I needed to come up with my own way to do the overhead shot of all the ships. So I started designing my own.
Oh, very nice.
And you probably, this was using free software that came with my Apple Macintosh LC575 that I bought in 1995.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so um, they are, so like this here is Yamato. This here is Nagato. This is the Congo. That is the Issei. That's the Otago. I can't remember these two off the top of my brain. This here is the Kitakami, the Sendai, and then a couple of different Japanese destroyers up here.
So you
So,
now, how many of these were these all part of the ones you had printed for the game last weekend that you ended up giving away to these
so
newbies?
the ships I had, the Japanese had two Congo, two Otago, Congo battleships, two Otago class um, heavy cruisers, uh, two or three Japanese light cruisers. That's what, two, four, seven, and then like 17 Japanese destroyers.
Okay.
And then for the Americans, they had the South Dakota, the Washington for battleships, the Portland and San Francisco heavy cruisers, the Helena, the Atlanta, and the Juneau light cruisers, and then that's one, two, three, four, five, seven,
Well, I
and
know you were
then
printing
another
up quite a
12.
few the last couple of weeks
Yeah,
to kind of get
and
ready
then
for this.
yeah, another 12 destroyers for the
And so, where
Americans.
are you at in the process as far as the rules? Are they pretty close to being set, or you still have a
Almost,
couple areas to work on?
almost. So, um, driving home from Kansas City, as one does, um, I told Donna, "Hey, I need to seriously sit down and figure out what I need to get done uh, to get Ocean Thunder ready to publish."
Hmm.
And actually, no, we took a trip down to St. Louis. Um, anyway, So I've got 9 big picture items that I need to do. One is to finish out getting the night combat rules done. And that's figuring out how to do the radar, do the spotlights, that type of thing.
Excuse
You're
me.
welcome, Charles. You're welcome. Um, I have to get the air combat rules taken care of. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. I need to get the air combat rules because I've been racking my brain on how to get the feel of air combat and anti-ship, air to ship combat without it overtaking the game. Because there are games out there that handle, that type of stuff already. Of course, there's
So when you say overtaking the game, it's because your game is more ship-to-ship surface combat focused, and that's what you want to preserve.
exactly.
Even though maybe historically aircraft played a larger role, you want to acknowledge it, but kind of abstract it a bit. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I'm also going to be moving Ocean Thunder back into World War One,
Oh,
and
nice.
I don't want a drastic change in how the game plays and how it and its turn progression,
Uh-huh.
because there was no ship air to ship or ship to air combat in World War One. It was strictly big guns and torpedoes. So I wanted to keep that focus there. So
Okay.
I finally came up with how I'm going to do it. It's just a matter of getting them written out and running the numbers to figure
Hmm.
out how they're going to work. Um, I've got to come up with, although I've got torpedo rules, ship to ship torpedo rules, because the Americans had such crap-tastic torpedoes the first half of World War II. I have to have, failure rates figured out. I got to figure out how I'm going to work failure rates for those early Mark 13 torpedoes for the United States. Um,
Hey, Mike.
oh, Mike, how you doing, sir?
I
Then I
got
got to
to. Yeah, I'm going to interrupt
go
you
ahead.
again. I
Go ahead.
apologize. I got
Go
to
ahead.
meet Mike in person at the SDHistCon. Played Wolfpack. My sub did not survive. I got no shots off, but the mission was completed by all the other subs. I was kind of the sacrificial sub. Oh my
Sacrificial
goodness.
lamb of the wolf pack, as it were.
Oh my god. It was. I'll tell you, it's a very fun game.
Good.
Uh, and yeah, I was
I
just unlucky. Not gonna lie, I was just
It
unlucky.
happens. It
Yeah.
happens. Um, then there's gunnery modifiers I need to work out, like speed
Mhm.
modifiers, and if two ships fire on the same ship, or if there's sustained fire on the ship, that type of thing. Um, so I got to get that in there. Then of course there's graphics. You know,
Excuse me.
okay. What am I going to do for photos and other images, as well as my visual examples, like how, and I'm going to use Jay Wiley here
Uh-huh.
because he puts together a pretty good game. Um, but he's got in here um, examples of how things, work, like this here.
Okay.
So I need to figure out how I'm going to
Well, I have
produce that.
Photoshop. I can help you with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
I've got.
I'm
I just
not.
have
I'm
to.
not overly expensive either.
Well, that's good. Um,
Just a really good plate of chicken fajitas.
there you go. Yeah.
But you got to order it. I want to hear you order it and say it.
That's like after a gaming session, the group used to go out to Denny's, and although I liked this particular dish, I I refused to order it by its name, and that's moons over my hammy. I
Oh,
couldn't
right,
do it.
dude. I used to love ordering moons over my hammy. Come on.
I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Anyway, um, but I got to figure out, not only how I'm going to do that,
Uh-huh.
but where. You know, what what part of the rules need an example like that? What part doesn't need it?
Right.
I don't want to have too many in there because it just as fills up the book. But I don't want to have too few and people going, what the is he's trying to say here? You
Right.
know. So, and then on like the copies that I have sent out so far
Uh-huh.
of the beta testing and whatnot, I had those little sidebars, and I'm contemplating: do I keep those? Do I not keep those? If I keep those, what exactly am I going to put in there? Am I going to continue to kind of go with what I am doing, or I'm going to change it up? What exactly I want to do? So I got to figure out where I am with that and what I'm going to do. And then scenario layouts, how I'm going to
Okay.
figure out.
But it
And
sounds
then,
like the rules are pretty close.
yes, the basic movement and combat rules. Oh, the one other thing that I need to put in here that I forgot to put in here is finishing up my
Here's a man you want to
finish
listen to.
keywords and examples in your sidebars. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, he ripped my air combat game apart.
but
No,
in a
I'm
good
kidding.
way, right?
In a very good way, yes. I got some
There
very
you
good.
go.
I'll talk
There you go.
about that in a bit, but yeah, it's really
But
productive.
I also need to do my get my
Hey,
damage
Scala.
control rules. Uh, nice. No, I will order them, but I will order them in the way that they're meant to be ordered. I'd like grilled chicken tacos, please.
uh, that actually sounds good too. I'll have some fajitas on the side.
Yep, nothing like a good steak fajita. But see, steak fajita is redundant.
I was going to say, based on your
Hmm.
rules of modern English,
Modern
anyway.
Tex modern Tex-Mex.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, I can imagine. I can
Yeah,
imagine.
Mike was pretty awesome. I'll get into it here in a minute.
So
So
yeah,
the so
like I said, the basic movement rules, the
uh
basic gunnery rules, um, all of that is pretty solid.
right.
In fact, they have been. I've been at this stage with that set of rules. Well, with this exact setup for about 10 or 12 years now.
Okay.
Now,
So you're
I
making
have not.
great progress.
Well, keep in mind, I have not been working on this solidly for 30 something years.
Right.
It was I went great guns from like 1991 till about 1996,
Okay.
and just got completely burned out and went through a divorce.
So great guns,
Hmm. See what
ships.
I did? See what
Yeah,
I
I saw
did
what you
there?
did. I
See what
saw
I
what
did
you did
there?
there.
Yeah. And then I set it
And then you
aside.
changed the name to Ocean Thunder.
No, it's been Ocean Thunder since where Ocean Thunder, where the big guns rumble.
Dude, you're stepping
Yes.
on my joke.
Yeah.
Great guns would
Because
be a very good name for your game as well.
maybe that could be my postcard name.
There we go. There we go.
Um, but oh, that's the other thing. I will not have submarines in this game. I I I went. I thought long and hard, figuring out. how I was going to integrate submarines into the game, and it wasn't going to be possible. And then I started. There's out of all of the different naval engagements, there was like two where the where submarines actually participated.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that is such a off the wall
Right.
situation that why am I why am I spending so much time spinning rubber on the track?
Right. That
You
makes
know,
sense. Well, again, you've got a focus of what you want the gameplay to be like. Excuse me. So yeah, you want to keep on that
yeah.
track. Anyway, I wanted to do a deep dive on this a little bit. Yeah, it's not a postcard game, but it's game design, and it kind of gives you an idea of the thought process that goes into some of these designs and how long they take. And that's one of the things with the game jam is to encourage people to take some of their older designs and put them into work on them and get them to a point where you can get them submitted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think this game with Chris and my air combat game is 20 odd years old as well.
But
Uh,
then there's sometimes you come up with something in 3 hours.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. I played it wrong, but I
You
had
did
fun doing it.
exactly.
I can't even get simple rules down. Oh my God. So let me dive into some of the postcards from the front topics. Um, so I was at the San Diego HistCon where actually Mike was there and got to meet him in person and play his game. We didn't get tank versus tank, which was a bummer. I wanted to play that as well, but poor Mike was sitting at the table playing games for 3 or 4 straight days, so he was putting the work in, which is something to keep in mind as you're designing games and want to get them published. Um, you're going to be out there meeting people, playing your game, and helping if you're published, selling it. So that's all part of the process. But I ended up doing a session on Saturday morning for Postcards from the Front. And it was kind of a last minute thing. I didn't expect going into this con where there's a lot of people had prototypes. There's a lot of game playing, and it really wasn't a forum to do game design in the sense of talking about specifically Postcards from the Front. So I didn't expect that I was going to have anybody show up and that I was just going to sit there and drink a Red Bull for an hour. But a gentleman did show up, and he was with the Stanford Libraries. And it actually worked out pretty well. We had about 45 minutes where we just talked. He was asking me about the game jam and a number of different things, and he was talking about, his wargaming experience. And then he said, he didn't tell me who he was with, and I'm wearing my Cal hoodie, mind you, and we're in San Diego. And then he introduces himself that he's with the Stanford Library, and they are looking to put together a collection of games. And after hearing what we're doing with the Postcards from the Front, what we're trying to accomplish, he was very interested in having me submit all the games that have been created and submitted to the Stanford Library to be archived forever. And I was literally blown away. I thought that's amazing that they are interested in seeing and archiving the work that we're, this little old game jam is doing. So I was really floored. So that's one of the announcements. I got 2 for tonight. That's one of the announcements. So here's the deal. I'm going to assume, unless designers, and I'm going to bring this up multiple times during the year, and this will last till the end of the current game jam. We got like 5 months. If for any reason, and you don't even need to tell me, you do not want your game archived, saved in the Stanford Library, let me know. And when I submit all the games, I will exclude yours. And you don't need to tell me why. You got personal. I mean, if you want to tell me, you can tell me. But It's really going to be your decision. And if I don't hear from anybody by the end of the current game jam, which is Cinco de Mayo, then I'm going to go ahead and all the games that are there, I'm going to submit. And going forward, that'll just be an added bonus that any of the games that you submit are going to go into the Stanford Library, which again, I think is very, very cool. And like I said, I had a really nice conversation with a gentleman, and funny thing happened right at the end, because when he told me it was Stanford, of course I'm wearing the Cal. Okay, and anybody in California probably knows that that's a huge, huge rivalry, and so I didn't say anything. And right at the end, he says, "So, did you go to Cal?" And I said, "No, I didn't. I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm a big Cal fan." And he kind of laughed and he said, "Well, truth be told, I graduated from Cal." So he graduated from Cal and he works at Stanford. So we had a nice little laugh on that. And he was telling me a couple of things about playing war games and stuff with his son. But it was just kind of funny that the Cal Stanford thing came up, and he's on both sides of the fence with that one. So that's the first announcement. And again, if for any reason you don't want your game, just let me know and I'll make sure it's not included. Other than that, at the end of this current jam, everything that we have going back to the first year, I'm going to submit to them. And then I'll let everybody know when that happens, and you can go onto the website. Now, I did put in the description of this video, I did put a link to the Stanford Libraries. So if you just want to go check out what their website is and see what that's all about. And yes, it is, just so very, very clear, it is from Stanford University. So it's totally legit. The second announcement that I have, and this is inspired by being, and I thought about this and I didn't do it just because maybe I didn't put enough thought into it or whatever, but being at the San Diego HistCon and seeing a lot, what's really cool about that is there are a lot of designers and developers and content creators, and it's really becoming one of the cooler cons for this particular industry. And there are a number of famous people. I don't want to overstate it, but at least in this industry. And there is a focus and a shift, a fundamental shift in the branding of war games to be a little more broad as under the umbrella of historical games. And we've seen that with Votes for Women. There's a few others. Sorry, I don't have a list in front of me. And so I'm changing the name of the, I'm keeping Postcards from the front, but I'm not calling it a war game design jam. I'm calling it a historical game design jam. And so if you have an idea for something that's social or historical that you want to design a game around, that's more than welcome in the jam. There's plenty of time if you've got, again, all the same stuff, right? If you've got a game or you want to design a game around that fits either a postcard or the 8.5 by 11 Christmas card size, feel free. And again, I'm going to use a very broad definition of what a social historical war game is. Again, we want to get games developed and designed. And so that's the second announcement that I have. A little note on for the rest of this year. I'm going to be traveling up to this past month has been extremely busy for me. I had 3 trips to Northern California and the San Diego HistCon. So all of my spare time has been either spent on the road with my grandchildren or actually playing games, which has been fabulous. I love this stuff. But I'm going to be driving up this weekend for Thanksgiving, staying for the whole week at my daughter's place, because the first week in December is my company Christmas party, which is up in the Bay Area. So I am going to haul my computer, not my laptop because it's on the fritz. I'm going to pull the desktop and set up base camp at my daughter's for like 10 days. I'll have to do the math. It might be a little more. Anyway, the next show is going to be really close to whether I'm getting home or not. So we'll see how the next show goes. Again, I like to do these every 2 weeks now. And Scheduling wise, if I'm back home, we'll definitely be on. If I'm on the road, I'll do what I can, and it might be an abbreviated. Today's going to be a little bit longer because we wanted to do a deep dive on Ocean Thunder. But so that's kind of the news in the schedule as far as that goes. Eric had asked earlier, we have so far 13 people have signed up. The Jam is accepting your submissions as of last Thursday night or Friday morning, whatever it was. And we've got like 5 months. Let me just look at 5 months, 18 days, 15 hours, and 53 minutes. So again, plenty of time. That's by design. And again, opened up the whole thing with historical. So keep that in mind. Another thing I wanted to do, and let me try to share this for you guys. Give me a second. So on, this is in Japanese and I apologize, but on X, I was chatting with Nicola, who, is a pretty famous designer and one of the people that kind of got this whole, inspired me to get the whole Jam started. This is a postcard game that he was talking about on Twitter and that he was playing. And I haven't had a chance to download it yet and print it up. But Bonsai Games online. And I didn't see it translate up here. And if there is, maybe I'm missing it. But can you guys see what I put on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I was looking at the main screen. So there's a link in the description if you want to go check out. If you read Japanese, great. But they're pretty proficient in putting out a number of postcard-sized games. So I'm going to download a couple to highlight just so that we can, encourage people, even if they're not in the Jam, what's out there. And it gives you an idea of what you can accomplish. And just look at this thing. It's beautiful, right? I mean, let's see if I can. Okay, it's not going to expand any larger than it was. Why did they do that in websites? Make that larger. Anyway, so there's a link there. I'm going to do a little more exploring in the next week or so and print some of these and see, maybe highlight some of them here on the channel. But again, if you're interested, go to the description of this video. There will be a link. It is bonsai-games.net. And there's 2 links, one to the main page and one to the actual game. So they do more than just this. Their actual publisher, it looks like they do a magazine. It's all in Japanese, but there's some beautiful looking games here. And there is a section for print and play games. So there's, like I said, there's going to be more of these postcard games there. So this is just another source of games from across the pond. Some of these are probably really cool. Makes me wish I could speak Japanese because some of these games look pretty. Just looking at some of the counters. Okay, that's just an ad. Anyway, I won't spend too much time on that, but I did want to share it. Anyway, so 2 announcements. I shared that. Is there any questions from the audience about any of the specifics so far for the Jam? I think most of you have participated, but open it up for questions if you have any. I'll give you like 30 seconds. Type away. Okay, apparently not. That's fine. So that was really all I had for today. I want to try to keep these at least until we start getting some games and do some deep dives in some of these. I am working on my Draken, which is a World War I. You are an observation. I don't know. Did they call them pilots? Were you a pilot in a balloon? I don't know. Are you flying? Good questions to ask. These I don't know. But anyway, you play as an observation pilot, we'll call it, in a World War I observation balloon, and it's a push your luck type of game. I started designing it. I'm going to pull out the files and really get to work on it after the New Year's, get through the holidays and everything. So that's one of the games I'm going to work on. And I think myself, if I get that finished, I am going to see what I can do about maybe some sort of historical game. I don't have an idea of what I do just yet, but that's intriguing me. Something along in that particular arena. Anyway, Chris, do you have anything else you want to add, my friend, before we sign out for the night?
No, not really. I am still looking for people willing to take a look at what I've got written so far. Um, right now, what I'm looking for is people to review what I have written at this point, and looking at it and giving me the feedback of, hey, this doesn't make sense, or this does make sense, but I think there's a part missing,
Uh-huh.
or because, like I said, this has been something that's banging around in my brain for 31 years, so it literally is second nature to me, and
Yeah.
it's very easy for me to write out, the rules, step by step rules, and forget a critical piece of information because my brain doesn't register that, hey, this needs to go on the paper because it just, oh well, it's obvious, it just is.
Right.
So yeah, I'm looking for people that are willing to look over what I have now, giving me that type of feedback. Hi Mike, how you doing?
Hola, sir.
So if that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to me. You can direct message me on Discord, either on through Hissy's um, Discord channel, or my Discord channel if you're a member. I think got a lot of cross pollination here. Um, oh, so it's really dependent on the size of the battle. So this past weekend, like I said, we had about, each side had about a dozen ships or so, with 4 players, two of which had never played before. One is the co-creator who hasn't actually played it in a while, and another guy who has played it a couple of times. And we were to the point where the players were ready to call the game because it was an obvious outcome in about 2.5 hours.
Okay. That's not too bad.
If you do something like, if you do a battle that's like the Battle of the River Plate, where you've got one German pocket battleship and 3 British cruisers, hour and a half, and that's for it to get to a historically viable outcome. I'm not saying that the British are always going to beat the Germans, because it's not a given. That's
Mm-hmm.
why you roll the dice, right? But and then there could be times when you've got, especially when you have a lot of destroyers with a lot of torpedoes, it's going to take a little longer, because
Okay.
torpedoes take a little bit longer to, adjudicate.
So I actually have a question. Do you have night rules?
I am working on them.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you will.
yeah.
Because
I,
if my memory serves me correct, that was one of the strengths of the Japanese Navy in the Pacific during World War II, was their ability to fight naval battles at night.
in 42 and early 43, they had the edge over us
Mm-hmm.
because they were really good with their spotlights. And then we basically said, you know what? We're not going to train how to do that, because we're just going to build radar. And that was the I win button for
Right.
when it came to the Americans. one battle that I've always wanted to do, for no other reason than I just think it kicks ass, is doing the Battle of Surigao Strait. That was during one of the many individual actions that built up the Battle of Leyte Gulf.
Okay.
So there isn't one. Battle of Leyte Gulf had a lot of ancillary battles going on around it. That was one of them, and that's when we had the basically the survivors of Pearl Harbor coming back out into the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like early 45, 1945, at night. And they were just doing a racetrack kind of a maneuver at the top
Okay.
of Surigao Strait. And the Japanese ships were a line ahead coming up that strait. They were getting harassed by PT boats after PT boats after PT boats. And then all 7 of the American battleships, which were crossing their T, just opened up when they got zeroed in with the radar.
Oh, wow.
And just got destroyed, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think the Americans had any hits on them. It was so one-sided. It's not a battle that would be real fun to play for the Japanese. I think if I ever ran it, I, as the game master, would run the Japanese, and the Americans would run the
Let me ask you that might be
the-
one. I'll just throw this out there as a thought. That might be one to set up as a solo game where the Japanese are run on a bot.
Right. Yep. Because it was 7 American battleships, and actually, it's not a really great game, and it's the wrong scale.
Okay.
But it does.
I know your thoughts on that scale.
They're beautiful models. They're great to paint, but
Hey, before you get too deep, Scarlet Gremlin has a question about scale and management of ships.
on a scale of X-wing to BattleTech, how micromanagement of ship system does it get? It's about midway.
About midway. Is that a scenario?
Yeah, it is in this book. Okay, let me set this thing aside and talk to you about if you want to spend the time on it, I'll talk about it. I can talk about it for ages. All right, so the game basically, when we get to, let's do it this way. I'm going to share my screen with one of these SICs.
So before you dive into that too
go
deep,
ahead.
So I think I've pretty much covered everything from the postcards from the front. I did have a couple anecdotal stories that I can bring up next time. Well, no, go ahead and do this. Just about having some of my games, or the air combat game, play tested by a couple of the designers there, Mike being one of them, and Kai, who works at GMT. So I was basically talking with the GMT crew to some degree. It's amazing when you have people, anybody that play test your game can give you valuable information. But there you go, Mike. But when you've got published professionals and people who work in the industry, you really want to, regardless of where your design is in the process, listen to what they have to say, because it may not be obvious when they say it, but think about it, plug it into your thought process, because I got a lot of valuable information on a comment about, in my air combat game, you play for advantage to do damage, and one of the suggestions was, does advantage need to be binary, meaning you've got the advantage or you don't? And although some of the cards in the game allow you to have get to hold off to do damage, to try to maintain the advantage, to do more damage, and it scales a little bit. And that was basically the suggestion. I just never saw it as a big mechanic. I had it on one of the cards a little bit. So the point being is, if you get a chance to get some people play testing your game, especially the really, really smart published designers and people in the industry, listen to them. That was a huge takeaway for me, and it was really a privilege to have somebody take the time to give me that feedback. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you're designing and you go to a convention or you get a chance to meet some of these people and they play your game, be very appreciative, one, and two, listen to what they have to say, because I have yet to meet a designer that's outside of Chris that really has an ego issue.
I've got an ego issue, but it has nothing to do with game writing.
Fair enough. Fair point. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because that was a huge takeaway for me, because I've had that game for I don't know how many years, and that never even came back at all. So game designers will give better feedback than my cat will. Yes. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for your cat, Mike, but I can speak for mine. And she tries.
All she wants to do is drink paint water
And knock miniatures off my table and roll dice. She's a good dice roller. No, I'm going to tell you, Mikey, I really appreciate you taking the time. And afterwards, I was like, darn it, I should have showed you what it was like to see a three-handed game as opposed to the legendaries, because there's it's a lot more deadly with those guys flying than what you may start out as. But that's for another day. Anyway, so what we're going to do, those of you who are here just to find out what's going on with the postcards from the front, that's all the news that I have, and we're just going to spend a little bit of time and really dig into what Chris is doing with his Ocean Thunder, because like I said, we want to try to get this published for him this coming year, 2025. And sometimes all you need is a push. And so I'm going to be pushing him the whole year. And if you guys see him, ask him about his game and encourage him. We all can use it.
Yeah. So real quickly.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Battle of Surigao Strait. There was 34 American ships, which includes 6 battleships, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 cruisers, and then 20 destroyers, compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 Japanese ships, which was two battleships, a cruiser, and 4 destroyers. So yeah, wouldn't be a real fun game for the player who's taking on the Japanese.
But that might be a solo one where you can score based on turns or time or something along those lines.
How quickly can you just obliterate your guy there? So,
That's a good one, Mike.
That is a good one. And these are exactly the things I need y'all to tell. And actually, I think I do have that explained. Maybe I don't. But I have a page in the rules that has one of these up. And I call out each of the different items. So,
do you see Mike's question?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll get to it here in just a second. Okay. So what we're seeing here is the at the top here, of course, is the name of the ship. Maximum speed is how far the ship will move in one segment of the turn. There's 2 movement segments per turn. So if you're going flat out, you can move a total of 6 inches in a single turn, broken up into 2 3-inch segments.
Why don't you take a second? When we talked about this phasing and the movement, when it comes to correct me if I'm wrong, you move, then there's combat, and then you move.
Right.
And I'll say it and you can correct me. But I thought this was a very clever design to determine combat if somebody's moving, kind of intra move, as it were, by breaking it into two segments. Because obviously it's not like you're going to move one segment and then choose not to move. These are ships. Unless you're going at a very slow speed, that's not really going to be an option. And so where do you take your shot? Because correct me if I'm wrong as well, combat is not sequential, but it's
simultaneous.
Thank you. English is my second language.
Yeah, bad English is your first.
Exactly. Just ask Siri. She doesn't understand me at all. Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah. So that I thought that was a very ingenious way to handle movement, and when you're setting range and rolling for hits is kind of mid-movement, as it were.
Right. So a turn sequence is you start off with torpedo. The very first thing you do in a turn is torpedo plotting. And any what I call instant torpedo shots or torpedo hits.
You want to answer Mike's question, boss?
I normally play on a 4x8 table, 4 foot by 8 foot table. Yes, and it is a miniatures game.
But it can be played with counters.
It can. It can. So I've played it with everything from 1/2400 scale all the way down to 1/6000 scale. So a turn sequence is torpedo plotting and instant torpedo hits, anything within 6 inches range wise. So if I've got ship A and ship B and they are less than 6 inches apart and the torpedoes are crossing there, you check to see if there's hits. Then you do movement. The first movement is done. Excuse me. In the turn template, as you can see here, I've got 3.
Chris, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Have you seen how Wolfpack handles torpedoes?
I have not.
When I get my copy, if you haven't, I'll share it with you. It's pretty. It works really well because you've got a convoy that's constantly moving, and how that fits onto a game board. But functionally, I think it might be a good read for you to just compare and contrast, and it might give you some ideas or some thoughts.
Oh yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with what you're doing. It's just
right.
It's just another way of handling torpedoes, which I thought was done pretty slick in that particular game. Wolfpack, that is.
So, okay.
Dude, that is the ugliest cat I've ever seen.
Well, good thing because it's the cutest dog you'll ever see.
Aww.
So I've got 3 turn templates, A, B, and C.
Okay.
And they're circular. They're a 3-inch diameter, 4-inch diameter, and 5-inch diameter with 1-inch marks around. So if you want to do a turn and you're doing 3 inches, you take it. Now let's say this was the template. You would move it 3 inches around.
Okay.
Just like that. And it can be at any point in time in the movement. If you want to do all 3 inches, you can. If you want to do 1 inch forward, 1 inch turn, and then 1 inch forward, you can. You want to go an inch this way and then an inch this way, you can.
Okay.
Whatever.
I like that.
And there are templates in the back of the book for you to cut out.
Okay.
I actually have quilting templates. That's what they are. They're quilting templates that.
Have you thought of creating some STLs?
I will be.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. So, C template's the biggest, the 5-inch diameter. A is the smallest, the 3-inch diameter, and that just.
Well, 5 inches, isn't that like supposed to be? That's an average size.
Yeah. For some. Maximum acceleration is, again,
Mike wants an answer.
yes, that is exactly the answer there. And see, that's one of the things in my brain that it's obvious to me. That's what I'm saying. But Mike had that question, so that means that's something I have to make sure I have written down. So, then damage control teams, I'll have damage control rules. I've got those pretty much fleshed out. I just got to type them up. The real
Sorry
game,
it took
though,
so long, Mike. You're dealing with a bunch of old dudes.
exactly. But when you do the gunnery, which is in the middle of the turn, when you figure out which shell, how many shells are falling into the area, because a hit is not necessarily a hit. A hit is it gets it inside of this box,
Okay.
which represents it's a representation of straddling the ship, which is how things are done on those type of these types of big gun combat. So as you go along, you will hit. If you get a hit with inside of this dark box, and the gun is able to penetrate the armor value at the range that it's fired from, and you see that here on the USS Texas with her 14-inch guns at anything from 28 inches to 37 inches is medium range. And this is something else that I have to make sure that I correct. I have to write in, what's my to hit number. Again, in my brain, I know medium range is always 7 on a D10. Long as 8, extreme range is 9, short range is 6, close range is 5. I know that because that's basically the way it's been for 30 years. But people are going to ask, well, what do I need to hit medium range? So I need to make sure that I get that written in somewhere.
Right.
So I can, with the 14-inch guns, they can do up to A armor, A being the thickest armor there is. The 5-inch guns can only do H armor, which is the thinnest armor there is. At mid-range at 19 inches. Excuse me. So if I, down here, I've got, and again, this is something that I have to explain in writing. A T stands for turret. C stands for conning tower. And then
R would be rudder.
Else, R is rudder, correct. But anything else, so if I have if it lands here on the in the chart, then it's just deck armor. That's the other thing I need to make a differentiation on is when am I hitting side armor, when am I hitting deck armor? Because if it's plunging fire, if it's at a range where it would be plunging fire, it only has to beat G armor. But if it's close enough where it's a torpedo, it has to be able to beat the side armor. That's the number of inches from the firing ship out. So these are my range bands. I've got close range, short range, medium range, long range, and extreme range. So anything 9 inches or less, I would need a 5 on a D10 to hit. Anything that's between 9 and 18 inches is short range, needing 6, etc. So my extreme range is anything between 37 and 46 inches.
Okay.
Anything past 46 inches, it's outside of the effective, really being able to target properly or even get that far.
Okay.
And all of this is based off of a mathematical equation that uh, Chris Copeland came up with that was like, when he wrote it out, it was like that long. And then I took that, and he told me an inch equates out to however long
Right.
it is.
Oh, now we're both coughing. Great.
What's that?
No, you're coughing. I'm coughing.
Yeah. So, and then all of my numbers comes from statistical data that I found for each gun historically.
Okay. So what's the turn sequence look like on overall?
So it's torpedo plotting, movement. Once that first movement is completed, you have the mid distance torpedoes, anything from 15, from 6 inches out to 15 inches.
Good night, boss. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And then we do gunnery. Then once gunnery is done, there will be aircraft
Okay.
will be involved at that point. And then once that's done, second movement is done. When the second segment is finished, the last thing is long range torpedoes, and that's 15 to 30 inches.
I have a quick story. I'm sorry, Chris. So meandering Mike. I was just saying goodbye to Mike, and obviously I'm a Mike. So I have a 3 Mike story from HistCon. Zilla Blitz, whose name is Mike, and he had a gentleman. Oh my God, I'm going to forget his channel. He's a YouTube content creator. His name is Mike, and myself. We had gone to a dumpling place for dinner one night, and our waitress was 9 years old. Obviously, family-owned business, and she was just the cutest thing. Came up and took our orders, and we all had separate checks. So at the end of when we're paying for our checks, she comes back and she goes, "I have a check from Mike," and it's just the 3 of us are all named Mike, and we're like, "Which one?" And you could just see she's panicked a little bit in her confusion, and she's looking at all of our name tags, Mike, and we got it all sorted out. But it was just kind of funny to just, I mean, because she took her job very seriously, great job. But the 3 Mike combo, tripped her up there at the end. It was funny, not gonna lie. Hey, boss, how are you, sir?
So anyway, yeah, the down and dirty of it is it's really a move, shoot, move situation with
Right.
the extra stuff added in around it.
Okay, and is that the core of it? It's move, shoot, move.
Pretty much, yeah.
And is there a lot of bookkeeping? It doesn't look like there is.
Everything is kept right here on the sheet. So let's say, excuse me, let's say we've got a Yamashiro with 14-inch guns. The stat line is going to look very similar to the Texas because it has 14-inch guns. There's a little difference in range. There's a little difference in armor points that it can penetrate. Excuse me, but we don't need to deep dive into that. So what happens is when I shoot and it comes in and let's say it hits the turret, okay, and I'm at long range. I'm more than 37 or more than 28 inches out from the Yamashiro. Because my turret is A armor, the long range can't penetrate that, so I don't lose the turret.
Okay.
The turret defeated the shell. Now, there is some damage that will be done because it's still, I mean, It still
Yeah.
hits. And I think it's, if I remember correctly, I've been working on it used to be it would do no damage whatsoever, and I was like, yeah, let's have some damage here. So I've been working on doing like excuse me, like 25%. So what would happen then is I would roll a d6. The Japanese
Hmm.
player would roll a d6, and since the 14-inch guns have 8 shell points, I come out here. Whatever they roll on the d6 tells me how many points of damage I'm taking.
Okay.
So if it penetrates the armor value for that particular area of the ship, you will get this many points.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Those
just looking
points,
at this,
these points are then
that's
taken off from the whole points, starting here, going this direction.
so this could be pretty deadly. I mean, a 6 is a
Yes.
critical hit.
Right. So a 6 is the full points of the shell plus what happens
Oh,
on the
got it.
critical hit
Okay.
chart. So, um, fire control is a
I have no
is
idea, Mike, by the way, what song that is. So
100
no
folk song
folk
points to
song
the
points
person
for
that know
me.
which song the line "Nooks and Barley Stock Stooks" comes from. Yeah, don't know. Um, but fire, of course, is going to has the potential of doing extra damage. Flooding has the
Okay.
potential of doing extra damage. Whole
Is there a
damage is
reload
just
time, or is it just
well,
abstracted into the game that each
it's
turn you can
abstracted
shoot?
because each turn is.
Here's
I
our
mean,
answer.
when you consider. Oh, okay, cool. Um, when you consider that the a well trained gun crew in one of these turrets, and actually you've got two on this on the Texas, you've got 2 gun crews per turret because you've got a gun, you got 2 guns. The Missouri's got
Makes
3,
sense.
etc. um, they can effectively be able to reload between each gun between 20 and 30 seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so once you've got zeroed in and you start sustained fire, it's just boom, boom, boom. Uh, so yeah,
And I would assume that that's pretty consistent with most navies, so it's nothing you need to
no,
highlight,
yeah,
like, oh, the Japanese were faster or whatever the
yeah,
case may
and
be.
and
Okay.
you know, there isn't a hard fast. You know how much time does each turn take?
Right.
Um, it's roughly 5 minutes because the thing is, of all the shells fired from all the navies, from all the guns in the entirety of World War II, it's something like 3 to 5% actually did any appreciable damage that would affect combat.
Oh, wow. That's pretty interesting. So that's of all
Yeah,
the shots fired.
yeah.
Wow.
Not counting stuff going against land-based,
No, no,
right?
I get it. I get it. We're talking ship to ship combat here.
Right. So, yeah, it's
So I know
you know,
you said you played what, a 12 on, you played a large battle at the
yeah,
convention.
about 12 on 12.
What do you think is the ideal? So I get the game. I want to get a friend to play. Maybe I don't have 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever. What do you think is a really good size? If it and I'm going to dovetail that into pickup games. Do they have to be historical scenarios? Or are you going
No,
to have
no, they
rules
don't.
for me to sit down and are there going to be
So,
points assigned? I mean,
no,
how would you do that?
there's not going to be points. I'm
I'm
going to have
asking three
scenarios that
questions in one, but you kind of
that's
get
fine. That's fine.
okay.
So, you want to sit down and you got, maybe 2 hours to play a game.
Hmm.
A perfect situation would be something like Battle of Denmark Strait, which is where Hood and Bismarck go after each other.
Okay.
You got the Hood and Prince Eugen against essentially Bismarck and Prince of Wales. Two
Right.
relatively big gun ships
I could
against
imagine if you were in
two big
port
gun
and got
ships.
into a fight at the bar, those dudes would say, "We're from the hood."
Exactly, right? Well, I mean, the
Okay, that was
cat,
lame.
after the fact, the cat could say that, but nobody else. Because the ship cat did survive.
Wasn't there okay, tangent. Wasn't there a cat that was on a British ship, survived, and it was picked up by a German ship, sunk,
Hmm.
survived, and went back to the British?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So,
It's
I
crazy.
mean, three of those 9 lives used up right there.
At least.
So, another one would be Battle of Cape Matapan, where you got one
Okay.
German pocket battleship against 3 British cruisers. Now, if you
So
got a little bit
how
longer,
would I play a non-historical that's fairly balanced, or is that? I mean, how would somebody sit down with your rule set and go through and say, here's a 2 hour game, fairly balanced between a couple of players?
I'll probably write something in there. I don't have a great I don't have a great way of doing it right now. It's
Okay.
again for me, it's obvious. Take a couple of battleships, take a couple of cruisers. Um, Japanese torpedoes have a lot, have a lot more combat weight than American torpedoes for various reasons. Uh, none of, not the least that their long range torpedoes had a longer range and a larger warhead.
Uh-huh.
But also on top of that, they didn't do 90-degree turns out of the middle of nowhere and completely miss, or when they did hit the ship, didn't explode, just because.
Right.
um, so yeah, I'll probably
So I
have
get a sense, based on what you're showing here with the research that you've done, that this game leans more historical
yes.
than, let's say, call it gamified, meaning
Hmm.
it's not like you're saying, I'm going to take these ships, we're going to have it so that you can grab, put in, and I'll go back to the points thing, 100-point
Sure.
navy, and and the Japanese have some trait like elves against dwarves or something like that. So you
Right.
didn't go down that path to make it
No.
more of a casual game, but it's not a full-on hardcore historical,
Right.
but it more is in line with that. So you get a much more feel of the historical ships and
Yes.
realistic outcomes. Okay,
Exactly. So, but the ultimate goal for Ocean Thunder is to have a historically viable outcome.
got it.
So if you want to do what if situations,
Hmm.
there's always the what if the Iowa class battleships went up against the Yamatos, or what if the Yamatos went up against the Bismarck.
Right.
You can do that with my game.
Now, is that
Um,
more indicative early war? I think I heard on one of your weekly shows, you and McMurray were talking about, I think it was you and McMurray, but I know McMurray was talking about that the Japanese late in the war just didn't, some of their weapon systems just really didn't stand up very well against the US.
um, it, it wasn't so much that they didn't stand up; it's just they didn't have the wherewithal to do it. They didn't have the oil to get the ships where they needed to be. They didn't have the gunpowder to shoot the guns. It's
Okay, well, correct me. I'm probably misremembering, but I think he was talking about some of the systems that were just outclassed by the U.S.
well, yeah, because
systems.
by 19, end of 44, early
Mhm.
45, the Missouris came online, and the Missouris were just far and away so
I
much
think that was
better.
the conversation you were having with him,
Yeah,
was with that
they
class
were
of ship.
just so far and away, so much better ships
Hmm.
that they literally outclassed everybody else. Yes, the Yamatos had 18-inch guns, but they didn't have the armor penetration that the 16-inch guns on the
Hmm.
Iowas did. So yeah, there's a 2.1 inch difference in size, but the American, not only were the shells better
Hmm.
and packed a bigger punch because they had a higher velocity, but we could put them on target better because we had radar.
So is it fair to say that the end of World War II was kind of how do I say this? I'm probably going to be wrong. The end of ship to ship combat, at least without all the combined arms. Like you were saying in World War One, it was very much about my ship,
Yeah.
my guns
So
bigger than you, and naval warfare seems like it had evolved even so quickly through World War II that by late war, that the
well,
aircraft and some of the technology, and
yeah.
obviously then we get into Korea and the
So
Cold War and all of that changes things. But
so I mean, actually, really early on in the war, um, the battleships were relegated to either uh, convoy protection,
mhm,
um, and really in convoy protection, they were just kind of they were the headquarters. They weren't even doing any of the actual hunting
okay,
of subs because they didn't have. I mean, there was nothing on the USS Texas that would actually be utilized in anti-sub warfare,
okay,
other than it was the communication hub for all the other ships because it had enough space to, you know, lay out the battle area, so to speak,
mhm,
in maps. And so, you had all the picket ships calling in. Well, we've got this side here, and and they
right.
could, had enough room for all of the radios needed to communicate with all of the different ships, etc. Um, they were either doing that or they were anti-aircraft wagons for covering the aircraft carriers.
Right.
That's really what the fast battleships were doing. Anything, the South Dakotas and old and newer uh, were doing
Now,
that.
the Atlantic wasn't so much about carriers, though, was it?
No,
It's
they
probably
had
because the island was so close to the continent, you could just
well,
fly over
yeah,
the channel,
yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly. Where you
I'm
used
oversimplifying it, obviously, but
Well, where the carriers came into play was some ASW protection of the convoys,
convoys. Okay.
but
Yeah,
you didn't use
I know that they were used, but
yeah,
yeah. So
but
Mike had
yeah,
put up something here that I think a very high level
yes,
missile and
absolutely.
jet era, over
Hmm.
the prop aircraft carrier era, which is where your
Hmm.
game is kind of set in. Sans the the carrier aspect of it, and then
Right.
when you get into the dreadnought, is
Yeah.
probably where your game is really going to come into play. I would think even more so historically.
Right. Right. So
Still above all, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Then the third thing that the battleships were doing was shore bombardment, doing,
Okay.
supporting amphibious
Landing,
landings.
island
Both,
landings and such.
yeah,
Yeah.
the USS Texas was at Torch into North Africa. Was
Okay.
She was at Salerno into Italy. She was at Normandy.
Right.
In fact, that's where the captain said, you know what, the Germans are they're pushing too far in, uh, pushing the Germans back. We need another 5,000 yards. let's go ahead and flood the port side blister, so we can get a a 2 degree angle to give us that much more, uh,
Wow.
and be able to fire. Who takes a 32,000 ton ship, flood it so it lists 2 degrees, just so it can shoot, Volkswagens of hate into the Germans?
Yeah.
Crazy
Smart
ass United
captains.
States Navy, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, and she was also at Okinawa and Iwo Jima, you know, providing support. Hi, buddy.
Yeah.
So that's what they were doing. They stopped being the main battle focus,
Oh,
and
there we
became
go.
and
That's
became
the ugliest
support.
dog I've ever seen.
No, this is a handsome dog.
I know. I know. Okay.
Um, but yes, yeah. Even and to be honest, the British proved that it was pretty much over for big gun combat
Hmm.
at Battle of Taranto,
Okay.
because
So,
that's where the Japanese got the idea for Pearl Harbor.
so let me ask you this. So you're gonna get the game published in the era that you've got all the stuff for.
Yeah.
You're looking to do the Dreadnought era.
Hmm.
Any thoughts or ideas of doing naval combat? And it might be a whole different system, a little more modern.
For me, no,
Okay.
because there's so much going on in quote modern naval combat, and that's really anything from about 1960 on.
What
Um,
about maybe a game that's all about Cold War submarine stealthy stuff? Because I know that's in
um,
your wheelhouse too, my friend.
sure, no, it's
I'm
to be
planting seeds. I'm
honest,
planting seeds.
it's difficult. It would not be a miniatures game.
Didn't need to be
No, I know. Um,
because they'd all be under the table. How'd we see them?
exactly, exactly. But it the nice thing about Ocean Thunder is you don't have to have a referee to do a mod. Honestly, to do a modern day naval game, and again, that's basically 1955 to 1960s on. Um, you have to have a uh, a referee, an adjudicator, because there's so much hidden movement. There's so much going on,
Right.
um, that's beyond line of sight. Uh, oh yeah, absolutely,
Swordfish.
Mike. Absolutely, yeah.
Swordfish.
There's 20 swordfish at Toronto, and then yeah, 350
Cranked it up to
at
11. Okay, that's Spinal Tap. I know that reference.
there you go. But yeah, the idea of being able to go after the Navy while it's sitting in port, in a shallow water port. That's why we thought we were fine. We were safe. Nothing was going to happen to us, because when a torpedo is dropped from an aircraft moving
Hmm.
at however fast, it actually, when it hits, it dives down deep and then comes up. And Pearl Harbor was shallow enough that a
Ah,
regular torpedo would dive and hit the bottom.
okay.
So how they fixed that is they actually put boxes around the fins on the torpedoes, so when they hit, those boxes actually shallowed out the dive.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's how they did it. That's how they got to us. We thought we were fine because all carrier launched torpedoes have to dive, will dive, because of physics, a certain depth.
Right.
Well, we didn't think outside the box like the Japanese did and say, hey, let's put these boxes around the propellers and the fins to make it not dive as
Right.
deep.
And obviously they were very effective.
Very effective.
Yeah.
We lost two outright battleships, Arizona and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And Utah got beat up pretty bad too, but she had already been decommissioned to a training
Yeah.
vessel. Um, but yeah,
Good point, Mike.
exactly.
Good point.
Buddy, are you having fun? Of course you are. Um, but yeah, talking about modern naval combat, Harpoon pretty much has it all the game Harpoon
Right.
is
I had that on
original.
computer back in the day.
It was originally a board game, or not a board game, but a miniatures game, written by Larry Bond, who was the co-writer of Red Storm Rising with Tom Clancy. And
I knew who I figured you'd get there.
yeah, for some reason I kept on wanting to say Harold Coyle. I was like, no, he wrote Team Yankee. You've got the first edition book, dumbass. um, yeah. So it and the ranges you're dealing with modern combat is
Yeah.
so great that it really doesn't even yeah, you can put modern ships on the table, but you're literally I'm putting uh, my cruisers on this corner, you're putting your cruisers on that corner, and we're chucking missiles at
Yeah.
each other at
Yeah.
150, 200-mile range.
Yeah.
Mike, absolutely, you need to dust it off and read it. It's an amazing book. I don't read it, I listen to it. I have read it several times in hard copy,
Hmm.
soft cover book, but hard copy. But I listen to it about once a year.
But so while we have Mike here and he's awake, although he does most of his videos at midnight, so he's probably just
Yeah.
waking up. Mike, are you going to submit a game to this year's jam? I'm going to put you on the spot for a second, my friend.
Yeah, he can't claim, oh, I've got homework to do for the game writing class I'm doing.
Well, that was
Yeah,
like 2 years ago, right?
yeah. That was his excuse last year and the year before. He says he hopes to.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Outstanding, outstanding. I
Awesome.
will love to see it, Mike.
So, what are you looking to do this year for the jam?
So I
I've
I
talked
am
about my design. I'm curious what you're
yeah,
going to do.
I'm dusting off the idea from Red Storm Rising, of the travels and um, the frivolities of Lieutenant Michael Edwards and his Marine contingent as they traipse across the backlands of Western Iceland.
Right. And you started that design a year and a half ago, right?
Yes,
I think we were
yeah.
chatting about that.
And I couldn't, I didn't think I could get it to fit on just the 5x7 postcard,
Right.
but with the expansion to being able to do it on this size,
Yes.
I think I'm going to be able to do it. And in fact, I'm cheating a little.
Okay.
I'm having AI help me with some ideas.
Okay. I don't know if that's cheating. I know AI is kind of a hot topic,
Well,
but
and what I'm doing
hotly
is,
debated topic.
yeah,
But,
I what I'm doing is I'm having it look, because I've got the book in PDF,
hmm.
and I dropped it into Notebook LM,
Okay.
which is the Google AI. And what's nice about the Notebook LM is it only looks at the material you've added into that notebook.
Okay, and LM is language model, I suspect.
I think so. I
Okay.
don't know. I just
So
know
it's
that's
it's
what
a
it is.
small footprint language
Right.
model that you
You
put
control.
information in. Otherwise, it's
Right.
not really connected to the internet or anything.
Exactly. Now you
Okay.
can tell it to go look, you know, hey, I want you
Okay.
to look at this information, the information I've given you, but I need you to go look at
So
out
you
here
bring up
also.
an interesting question, and I'll probably maybe post this and put maybe a poll on X and on my YouTube channel. Um, I'm working on a game design where I'm using Claude AI. That's a
Yeah.
choose your own adventure World War One air combat, and I'm going to make sure that I put a disclaimer, both because I'm going to publish this through Amazon, the KDP program, and I'm going to
Right.
put a disclaimer on the listing and also um, very highlighted in the book in the very beginning the use of AI, what it was actually used for in the book, in the design process. Because part of it is I need it for my job, so I'm trying to learn it. And two, I'm trying to learn what works, what doesn't work, and use it in a responsible manner, define responsible manner. But I'm going to put a full disclosure. What are your thoughts on in the jam if people are using AI? I don't want to get into any big controversies if somebody's using AI art, even for their um, postcards, because I used
So,
it on mine a couple years ago just to do a Civil War image,
right. Yeah.
but then I modified it. I used it as a base, um, and I'm wondering if that should be maybe a mandatory or a required disclosure, just so people know.
I would say, yeah, look, I would have, if you're going to use AI to generate any part of the actual game,
Yeah,
you're going to need, because see, what I'm doing is I'm actually just using it as an analyzer.
yeah. Well, like
You
I said,
know,
I had actually I created an image. Um, and this again, this is a couple of years ago, and it was before dare I say, before this was really I think, an issue, or at least I understood it to be an issue. Um, and I'm not making any money or anything like that off this. It's obviously low key, but um, yeah.
no, I don't. I know a
You know what? Maybe
lot of.
there was a really good. I'll have to find it. There was a um, I'm drawing a blank. Oh my god, they're going to kill me. Anyway, there was a conversation with David Thompson and about AI, and oh my god, dispatches. I'll get it. I've been on their podcast, and they do. I don't want to misquote anybody or say anything out of step here, out of pocket. But anyway, it was a really good conversation about the use of AI, and I think both of them were taking a very armchair dragons. Thank you, Michael. Yes. Um, and it was a very. I'll find a link. I'll put it up on maybe on the description here of uh, this video once it goes up. Well, it'll be posted live almost immediately. But anyway, I'll put a link to that. It's worth a listen. And I think what I really appreciated about that conversation was I think it was very open, very honest, um, acknowledging some biases and really trying to have a well thought out conversation about the use of it and things such as that. And maybe at some point, Chris, you and I might try to accomplish something very similar and share some of our thoughts and
Yeah.
ideas and add that to kind of the community. Um, I'm using it. for work. It helps me write code. Um, and I don't think that's much of an issue writing code. I don't think that infringes on anybody's copyrights. But I know art is a real big thing. Um, and so, yeah, that may be another episode. I want to do a little more thinking and put my thoughts together. I just don't want to ramble, stream of consciousness, which is what you guys get a lot from me on these podcasts. But hello there, Stukla. How are you, my friend? Well, we've been on for an hour 40.
Yeah.
But yeah, so why don't we talk, Chris, and maybe we could set something up maybe
Sure.
after the beginning of the year and maybe dive into that topic a little bit and see if other people might want to chime in on it. I mean, especially with, in the jam, I'm trying to eliminate hurdles for people to get into design.
Sure.
But I don't
Makes
want
sense.
to upset the community if there's a perception or people thinking, "Hey, this is unacceptable behavior in our community." So I definitely want to just think about that and put some guidelines in place to try to avoid any. Not that there is any drama now, but I don't want to be blind to it either.
Yeah. Don't want to be oh, don't want to have any kerfuffles.
Yeah. I want this to be a positive. I want the jam to be a positive experience for
Yeah.
people. I don't want it to be a battleground at all. Okay, Mike. Yeah, again, I'm using it to do some of the choose your own adventure to help me write. I'm not going to use it for art, and we'll see how that plays out. And like I said, I'm going to put a major disclosure there. And I've done all the game design. I mean, it throws out some ideas or whatnot, but it's more of me saying, "Hey, what do you think of this or that?" But I control all the game design, and even the story for the most part is coming from me. Partially because I've been doing some research and I'll put a listing of some of the books I've been listening to. But No Parachute is, oh my God, it's such a great book on World War I air combat, and we'll have to talk about that maybe when I do a deep dive on what I'm doing with Richthofen. But yeah, let's do a little bit of thought in how AI could be used in the game jam and what people's thoughts are. Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that as well, Stuka. But anyway, this has gone about an hour longer than what I had thought of originally planned. But I really did want to. I'm trying to encourage Chris and get the word out about Ocean Thunder and get some some exposure for it, because I think from the conversations that I've had with him and like tonight, it's such an intriguing design, and I think it needs to be released on the world. So we're gonna get it done, and he's gonna get it done. I'm just gonna be the guy prodding him with the cattle prod to finish it. But so I appreciate you guys listening to us talk about it and letting Chris talk about his baby. Everybody loves our games. We take them very seriously, right, in our design. So I appreciate you sharing it, Chris. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And again, if anybody is interested in taking a look at it for me, by all means, reach out to me here on Discord, or let Hissy know in the in the comments here, or and we'll definitely, I'll definitely get. I've got a playtest package that I can send out.
And they can find you on your Discord, right?
Yeah, or here also.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, just reach out. So.
Alrighty, guys. Thanks so much. Again, keep an eye out. I'll announce the next show schedule. It's going to be in at least 2 weeks. I will be traveling. If I miss it in 2 weeks, it'll definitely be 3 weeks. We'll have one before the end of the year. Maybe I'll put two back to back, 1 week after the other. But I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, and I will see you. I'm going to on the flip side.
Hey, that's mine.